head coach of UL Monroe, Todd Berry. If you have a question for Coach Berry, please dial *1 at this time. Again, *1 to get your questions in the queue. Coach, while we're waiting for that, would you mind starting us off with an opening statement?
Yeah, good morning. I think we had a real productive spring. I'm excited about this football team. We've got 9 starters back on defense that I think was pretty good, and I think our challenges came on offense last year more than anything, and I think that we made some improvements this spring and made some adjustments. I'm going to go back and call in plays, and I'm excited about doing that again. I think we have pretty good skilled players, and I think we need to continue to improve in the offensive line. I think the big question is going to revolve around quarterback, but I feel I'm excited about that group, and I think this group is very driven. We lost basically 6 games last year on the last play of the game, and it seemed like every one of our games came down to that because we won 3 on the last play of the game, and so we were in some very close games, and I think this is a relatively mature group. It's our first senior class that basically we recruited, and the group we redshirted and bit the bullet on, and there's several all-conference players coming back in this group. So I'm excited about their drive. We came out of spring healthy. We had to fight through some adversity in relation to weather, and we handled that well, and so we had, I think, a very, very productive and healthy spring, and looking forward, obviously, to this next fall.
Thank you, Coach. Our first question is going to come from Monroe, Louisiana. Caller, please identify yourself and go ahead.
Hey, Todd. It's Adam at the News Star.
Good morning, Adam.
Good morning. Kind of to piggyback on something you and I talked about the other day, I got kind of curious. We were talking about, what it takes to have a successful program in the Sun Belt, and the kind of consistency you see from a place like, an Arkansas State or a Louisiana Lafayette. In your mind, what is it that sets, say, Arkansas State apart from some of these other programs, and how you're trying to build yours as well?
Well, I think that, as you and I kind of talked, I don't know that, that they're, I think the formula is out there all across the country and not just within the conference in relation to having success. And I think that, first and foremost, both Arkansas State and Louisiana Lafayette have both invested heavily in their programs, and I think that that's a key component, not just in the Sun Belt, but all across the country. Those people that invest, they tend to produce results, and so obviously that's one of the key ingredients. But I think more specifically in relation to our conference, and if you go back and, as I have, and I'm sure many also have, in relation to who has success, it's been, I think, the team that has stayed healthy and the team that's mature. And if you have a mature team, then you stay healthy through the course of the season, then you are going to have a great chance to win the conference. And I think that's been, in the 5 years that I've been in the conference, that's certainly been the case. I don't think that it's not always been those teams that were preseason all-conference. I had a lot of preseason all-conference players or the preseason pick to win the conference. It was that group that stayed mature and stayed because they stayed healthy. And so I think that's kind of a key ingredient, and I think we've got a relatively mature team, and then now the question is going to be whether we stay healthy.
Yeah, how hard is it to stay healthy, especially when you're in a situation like you're in maybe some other schools in the conference where you're having to go play the Alabamas and Georgias and Texases and Oklahomas of the world?
Well, I think it obviously can make it a little bit more difficult. I think, last year I mentioned earlier about having all the close games. I think anytime that you're in close games, then consequently you're going to tend to not play as many players in those games, which puts more stress on the guys that are out there. Certainly depth is very, very critical. And, a couple of years ago, I think we had a really good team coming back that just got devastated by, injuries with our top players. And those are quite honestly really difficult to overcome, even with depth. When you're losing all your all-conference players by midseason, you're going to have some issues in trying to fulfill what your initial goals were. So, those are the breaks of the game. Those are things where people have to step up, and you just hope that you create enough depth and maturity in your football team and had enough retention in your team that you're going to be able to sustain some injuries. But trying to predict them or trying to prevent them, if somebody ever breaks that code, then it's going to make coaches' lives an awful lot easier.
Yeah. Have you talked to Justin Manton lately? How has he been have been doing, leading up to the draft, and seeing where he might go?
Yeah, I have often actually, and he's doing well. He's I don't know whether that position traditionally being a punter kicker doesn't necessarily get drafted, but his opportunities I think are going to be there because he has a multitude of teams that either are looking at him as a punter or a kicker, and so he's got different people kind of coming from different directions on that. He doesn't care what he does. He just wants to have an opportunity, and so I think it looks really, really good for him to be able to kind of select the one that fits him the best, and for him to actually, have some market value because the number of teams that are out there are looking at him.
Yeah, and is that what makes him more valuable than his depth? The fact he can do both, and have you had that experience with other players before?
It does make him certainly more valuable because you can save a roster spot potentially, and anytime that you can do that at that level, then that's a great thing. And so that certainly puts him, I think, in everybody's eyes in the NFL in a much better position. But this is the first time I've ever had a dual guy. I've had dual guys before, but not necessarily a dual guy that could either be a punter or a kicker in the NFL. And so this is the first for me.
Yeah. And how big, just was having his presence to handle both, in your program over the last couple of years?
Well, it was huge in the sense that, we needed to have him because we didn't have anybody else that we kind of inherited, and so he had to step in at an early age, which is difficult sometimes, but he, I think, handled it extremely well and grew up in the process. But for us, too, it saved us kind of that same roster spot, even though we have a few more than the NFL does. It kind of saved us a scholarship knowing that you had a guy out there that was going to be able to do both, and that allowed us to, spend that scholarship someplace else where we needed help. And certainly when we first got here, we needed help at a lot of different positions, so that was beneficial.
All right, Todd, appreciate it.
You bet, Adam.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Coach. We do appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
All right, if everyone could stand by, we'll place everyone on a brief hold. We'll be back at 10:10 in just about under 3 minutes here with Coach Ray of Texas State. Please stand by.